On May 8th, Ohio voters will pick 2 candidates from a field of 6 to stay alive in the contest to be Ohio's next governor. The University of Akron's Bliss Institute of Applied Politics wants you to learn more about all 6 and is sponsoring my interviews with them. I'm Tom Beres, former longtime senior political correspondent with WKYC-TV in Cleveland, and joining me now is Attorney General Mike DeWine, Republican candidate for governor, who I have covered for almost 4 decades on and off again, going back to the mid-'70s in Dayton. Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much for being here.
Tom, thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
And a disclaimer, just to get out of the way at the top. My wife, Susan, is a senior assistant attorney general in your office, works for you, has had an attorney general's office job back to Betty Montgomery. So hopefully nothing we say here will get her a demotion or an exorbitant pay raise. Just clearing the deck on that. All right, lots of breaking news today. In Ohio, news that Speaker Cliff Rosenberg has decided to move on. You publicized that you had made a call to him advising him to do that. Why did you do that?
Well, I did it because it's very concerning when you read a story, as I did, in the Dayton paper that said that the FBI didn't exactly say the FBI was investigating the speaker, but what it said was that the speaker had hired a lawyer to deal with that. So, very, very concerning. There's a problem. If the FBI is investigating the Speaker of the Ohio House, that's a problem. And so I picked up the phone, frankly, shortly after seeing that and called the speaker and said, look, if this is true, you need to step down, and you need to step down right now.
When you say a problem, I mean, this could have been a problem for the Republican ticket.
Well, it's a bigger problem trying to get anything done. I mean, we've all seen examples of where a public official has been under a cloud, and that cloud continues, and it's very difficult for that public official, frankly, to focus on the people's business because they're dealing with their own problem. And it just seemed to me that if, in fact, the Speaker had done something wrong, this needs to move on.
Okay.
He needs to move on.
But this could have been damaging to the ticket. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Would have helped the ticket.
We're a long way away from the election as far as the general election, and I don't suppose you certainly could think it could have been damaging.
So from what he
but
told,
ultimately, you got to do what's right, and what's right is that the people's business move forward. I've been around politics long enough to know that when you see a story like that, not a good thing, and I also knew that this would probably go on and on for some period of time, and it would make it very difficult for the Speaker to get the job done. There's a lot of things this legislature should be working on, and so
this is a distraction.
It's a distraction. It's a distraction that hurts the people.
And so from what you know of the facts, is this story going to get uglier before it gets better?
I don't really know the facts. The Dayton paper broke the story. Laura Bischoff broke it. There's a lot of rumors that have been floating around for a while, and of course you hear more rumors now. But I don't know what the facts are. I'm, as you know, an old prosecutor, former prosecutor, and the facts are the facts, and the facts will lead us to whatever the right conclusion is. So I think it's premature for me to say where this is going. I don't frankly know where it's going. What was apparent to me was, based on my experience in government, is that this was going to be a distraction for some time, that this was probably not going to be resolved quickly. If it is a criminal investigation by the FBI is very thorough, and you can bet that they're going to do a good job, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have an answer that the public will be aware of in a day or a week or even a month.
These things take time.
These things take time.
Also
and
today,
the people's business, you got to move forward.
From Washington, news today that Speaker Ryan will not seek re-election. What is your take on that? People say, well, it's another harbinger that he must be afraid of that blue wave that's coming in the midterms.
I'm not privy to what the Speaker had in his mind. I do recall, though, that it was pretty clear when he became Speaker that he was reluctant to become Speaker of the House. He pretty much said so. This was not in his plan of what he wanted to do. So, yeah, it's a little surprise, but I guess it's not really a shock to see this happen.
Okay. Other items in the news, the ongoing discussion about President Trump's ability regarding the special counsel. From your perspective, does the president have the right to discharge the special counsel, Mr. Mueller? And does, from what you know about the direction the investigation has gone and how far it's gone, does he have the right to discharge him? Should he discharge him, in your opinion?
Well, those are two different questions.
Right.
I mean, first of all, I don't know the facts. I know the same thing that you know. I know the same thing that our viewers, our listeners today know. So I don't really know what the facts are. One of the things that you and I talked about before we came on the air is it is highly unusual for a prosecutor to approve a search warrant, to take a search warrant to a judge, to search the premises of someone's lawyer. So that is, that's sort of a wow moment.
Okay.
And the reason is pretty simple. The reason is that prosecutors are understandably and correctly reluctant to do that. And I'm not judging this because I don't know what facts they have, but they're reluctant to do that because of the fact that you will be dealing with attorney-client privilege information, and how do you sort that out so you're not, as the investigator, you're not looking at something that's privileged?
To nudge you back to the question,
Yeah.
from as you understand it, does the president have the power to fire Mr. Mueller?
Well, I think he has the power to do it.
Okay. And from what you know, would that be appropriate?
I don't know that I would advise the president to do that at this point. I don't think that would be in the country's best interest.
All right. One other grab from the headlines question here. Discussion about how governors should react when the president asks them to send National Guard troops to monitor the Mexican border. If you were governor and the president called today and said, we need some Ohio National Guardsmen, your response would be?
Well, first of all, I have been a strong advocate for building a wall. I voted for it when I was in the United States Senate. I voted to add an additional 15,000 Border Patrol. So the fact that the federal government is not really taking care of the border impacts people in the state of Ohio. It impacts us. I see it every day as the Attorney General because guess what? There is a Mexican drug cartel. And many of the people who come up here are illegal. Now, not all of them are illegal. Some of them are legal who are coming across the border and bringing heroin into Akron and in Columbus and our other communities. So the porousness of the border, our failure to take care of the border is important. So
Okay.
I haven't really, frankly, thought about it, but when the President of the United States asks you because of national security to send the National Guard, I think the answer is probably going to be yes.
All right. Again, you've been on the ballot in 5 different decades, and we could go through the whole litany of all the offices you've held, which is pretty exhaustive, from county prosecutor to state lawmaker.
You and I started together, right? Isn't that what you told me?
Yes, just about contemporaries.
You're in Dayton, and I was in Greene County.
Yeah, well, I'm still doing the same thing, and you're trying to get a better job. But so my question is, though, a lot of people say, well, you are the definition of a career politician. Your face could be in the dictionary under career politician. A lot of people use that term almost in derision or contempt. What do you say to people who have that thought about a career politician such as yourself?
Well, I think first of all, Tom, it's somewhat ironic to hear Mary Taylor talking about Mike DeWine being a career politician. You can go back, and she spent an awful lot of her time being in public office. I think ultimately what's important to the people of the state of Ohio is when they make a decision about voting for governor of the state, they want someone who is proven they can get the job done, someone who is a problem solver, someone who has the passion, the drive, the energy to do the job. So I run for governor because, quite frankly, I love the state. I think we have a great future. I think, frankly, that the spotlight is sort of coming back to the heartland for a number of reasons. The quality of life is great. Many other things. The cost of living is not nearly as much as on either coast. But I think we have a lot of good things going for us. Within 600 miles of where we're talking right today is 60% of the population in the state. We have an abundance of water if we take care of Lake Erie and do what we should be doing. We have natural gas now in the southeast Ohio. We always had it, but now we have the ability to get out of our poorest counties. But we have problems and we have challenges. And I intend to tackle those challenges. Two, if I can just mention the two, and then we can talk. The two big ones are the opioid problem, and the second one is a skills gap or education gap.
We will get to both of those.
We have to focus on those like a laser, and I intend to do that as governor of the state.
So, again, people are trying to evaluate all the personal circumstances here. Say, well, you know, you've had all these jobs, and the job that you're seeking arguably could be one of the most demanding that you'd ever held, running a state of 12 million people and 50,000 or so workers and what is it, $32 billion a year budget. I mean, that's going to be demanding, that's going to be taxing, that's going to be grueling if the job is done right. Is there any reason that people should have any doubts in their mind that you are vigorous and visionary enough you're not shy about your age, 71, to do the job?
No, anybody who makes comments about, do you have enough energy? I very nicely say, well, we'll put you in the car with me and follow me around for a few days in Ohio. No, I have the drive, I have the energy, I have the passion, and I have the experience to focus on the problems and work to get them done every single day.
Okay.
I'm excited about it.
You are running with John Husted, and many people back when you announced that you were going to team up, because obviously he was a strong opponent, surmised that there must be some sort of at least a tacit understanding that, okay, we'll run together, and then I'll get off the stage and clear the way for you, Mr. Husted. So what, is there a deal?
No deal. We never have talked about that at all.
No understanding?
No understanding.
No wink, wink?
Nothing. No. But what we do have between us is a matter of trust and faith in each other. The politics of us coming together certainly makes a lot of sense, but what maybe is not as apparent is how valuable John Husted is going to be when I'm governor of this state. I was lieutenant governor. I can honestly say that I don't know of a lieutenant governor in my lifetime who has the background that John Husted does to really make a huge contribution to the job of governor. John and I talk about issues every single day, and we share the same values, we share the same concerns. We both have traveled all over the state, and we see the problems out there.
Are you going to target and give him a specific, focused mission, or he'll just be advising you on the whole wide range of important stuff?
Well, I don't think there'll be an important decision that John does not have a say in. Ultimately, the buck stops with the governor. But John's background, if you go back when he got out of the University of Dayton, his background was at the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development. It's something he has a passion for. And if you look at the challenges facing the state of Ohio, job creation is the number one challenge. And you can't talk about job creation without now talking about the opiate problem or without talking about the skills gap.
All interrelated.
It all comes together. But John has thought about these issues. I mean, the way I explain it is when you run for governor, it's really different than running for any other office. And what's different about it is, if you win on January 14th, the buck stops with you. And you're the one that has to make the decisions, and you're the one that has to lead the state. So what it does is it focuses you on thinking about, well, what will I do as governor? And so John has been through that same experience as I have, because he was running for governor. And he's going to be a great asset, not just to the ticket, but he's going to be a great asset when I'm governor of the state.
Your opponent, Mary Taylor, has said multiple times that she believes that you and Mr. Husted got the party's endorsement because of the good old boys network. That term has a lot of negative connotations to it, noting that the Republican ticket consists of basically all white men. Is there an argument to be made that the Republican Party is not as focused or concerned about diversity as perhaps it should be?
Well, to explain this good old boys network, I think it's interesting. As you know, in the State Central Committee, you have an equal number of men and women. Mary Taylor only got, I think, 3 votes out of the entire Central Committee. So these were women and men from throughout the state of Ohio who've been elected to those positions, who made a decision that Mike DeWine and John Husted were the ticket to back, that we had the best chance to win in November, and that we had the best chance of serving the people of the state of Ohio. Tom, if you look at my career, and if you look at the key people who I have placed around me, you will find that a large number of those individuals are women. Laurel Pressler Dawson was my chief of staff in the U.S. House. She was my chief of staff for the U.S. Senate. So for 20 years, she was my chief of staff. Currently in the Attorney General's office, Mary Mertz is my first assistant. Ann O'Donnell heads up policy. Sherry Maxwell, Pam Borton. These are our top people in the office. And so we're going to have in the Mike DeWine's cabinet the best people that we can find, and I'll guarantee you when you see that picture of the cabinet, it will be a diverse group of Ohioans.
You can make a case for your personal commitment to diversity, but when you look at the names and faces and go all the way down the ticket, and it's white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, what does that say about the party?
Well, look, we have an obligation to reach out, and that's very, very important. I've done this throughout my career. The one position you've not talked about is the chairman of our party, and Jane Timken is a young lawyer who I think is doing a phenomenal job as the head of our party. I think she's going to lead us to victory in the fall, and we have put a lot of faith and confidence in her.
All right, let's go back to issues, the opioid epidemic. The Center for Disease Control found that Ohio's opioid deaths went up 39% between 2016 and 2017. They say that's the third fastest increase among all of the states, 3 times the national average increase for a state. Is being near or at the top of that list an indictment of your and other state leaders' unsuccessful efforts to deal with this? What does that say?
Tom, it is a tragedy. The day I took office as the Attorney General of the state of Ohio over 7 years ago, we started focusing on the opioid epidemic. At that point, it was primarily the pill mill problem. It was primarily pharmaceutical pills that were being taken, opioids. And of course, it is moved then from that to the heroin and now to the fentanyl. But I took action immediately. We have taken the licenses of over 100 doctors. We have locked up a number of these doctors. We have closed the pill mills. We came out in the Attorney General's office, started doing some things that quite candidly are not normally in the role of Attorney General. I mean, I looked at this from a holistic point of view and said, we can't arrest our way out of the problem. Now, we have the law enforcement side of it. We have what we call the bulk task force. And we're going to have, when I'm governor, we will have more of those to actually interdict these drugs as they come in. But one of the things that we did, I saw that the communities that were really starting to make some progress were communities that had risen up in a grassroots effort, and usually led by a mom, sometimes a dad, but usually a mom. And so what I wanted to do is replicate those. So I put a unit together in my office, again, not something the Attorney General normally would be doing, but we put that unit together in our office. And what we have tried to do and worked very, very hard is to spread that word from community to community to community. Because of what we've done and because, frankly, of what people at the local community level have done, we have a lot of good things going for us in the state today. We have people doing things that they've never done before. We have law enforcement, for example, a program that I very much encourage. And we put some money into law enforcement being involved for the first time in getting people into treatment. Something that, in your experience 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you never would have seen. So a lot of people pulling together. When I'm governor of this state, when I'm sworn in on the 14th of January, there will be no doubt that this is our #1 priority. I will marshal all the forces that I can to deal with this problem. I would invite our viewers today to go up online and look at our campaign webpage, and there's a 12-point plan. We put that up there. Some of these things we've already are doing, but a lot of it we can't do unless I'm governor of the state. 12 points. I'd ask people to take a look at this. This outlines what we intend to do from a very holistic point of view. The one thing that I would mention of the 12 is the most important in the long run, and that is education and prevention. We're not doing a very good job in the state of Ohio today in regard to that. So when I'm governor of the state...
Whose responsibility should that be to make sure that we've been doing more? Who dropped the ball there?
I'm not going to go back and blame people, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. When I'm governor of the state of Ohio, in every school in this state, public, private, parochial, charter, we will start in kindergarten and K through 12 every single year. We will do what the experts tell us to do, and that is to have a curriculum that is focused on not just opioid prevention, but all drugs, which certainly would include alcohol. And every year we'll do something that's age appropriate. Every year we will do something that has been proven to actually work. I was on Reagan's National Commission on Drug-Free Schools. Drug situation is different today, but some of the same things and some of the remedies are the same. And what that, every expert who came in, Tom, and talked to us about that said is, you've got to start in kindergarten, you've got to do something every single year. So we will get in front of this problem when I'm governing the state.
You are suing in federal court the opioid manufacturers and middlemen, basically claiming that they overstated the benefits and grossly undersold the dangers of this. At any point, did you consider that what they did should be pursued as a criminal action?
I don't think the evidence is there for a criminal action, but what I do believe is that they need to be held accountable. They created this mess. They need to help clean it up. And just one small correction, we actually filed in Ross County. So we filed in the state of Ohio. What has happened in regard to in the federal court, yes. Judge Polster, a federal judge here in Northeast Ohio, has tried to get a settlement going. And I applaud him for doing that. We are not in his court, but he invited us. He was nice enough to invite us to come in because I think he understands that you have to have, if you're going to have a settlement, it has to be a holistic settlement. So I applaud what he's doing, and I hope what he is doing brings us to a resolution as quickly as possible. But what these drug companies did, let me make it very, very clear. About 20 years ago, they started telling primary care physicians that these opioids, these pain meds, were, quote, not very addictive. That was wrong. They knew it was wrong. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars to focus on primary care physicians. And as a direct result of that, we saw for approximately 17 years after that, the rise in pain meds being prescribed in the state of Ohio. And it went up and up and up and up and up. Finally now we're starting to turn that around. We believe, and the experts tell me, that 80% of the people who are on fentanyl, 80% of the people who are on heroin, 80% of the people who are dying started with pain meds. Either they were prescribed to them or they were diverted and they got them and they became addicted to the pain.
Do you have any kind of a cumulative bottom line figure what you believe the cost to the state of Ohio has been for all of the consequences and expenses associated with this? If obviously there's possibly going to be a monetary settlement, what would be fair and equitable?
Well, I'm not going to answer what would be fair and equitable because my grandmother, who is a great business person, DeWine Seeds family business, she always told me, don't negotiate against yourself. So don't be the buyer and the seller. So I'm not going to tell the other side what we will accept. What I will say is that The Ohio State University did a study and found that the cost to the state of Ohio, not just the government, but to the people of the state of Ohio, is about $6 or $7 billion per year. So it's huge. I mean, think about this. We have babies born every day who are born addicted. We're losing about 15 people every day who die of an overdose of drugs. Our foster care system, and this is something that as Attorney General we have no jurisdiction over, but we have been working to help resolve this problem, and I think have made some progress. But the foster care system is bursting at the seams with kids. Over half of all the kids in foster care today in Ohio are there because one or both parents are drug addicts. So the cost to the people of the state of Ohio has been immense.
And it would seem the likelihood of recouping all that would be not very great.
Look, no one thinks that we're going to recoup every single dollar that has been cost everybody in the state of Ohio. But these pharmaceutical companies that cause this problem have a moral obligation to help. And what is infuriating to me is, and one of the reasons that I felt we needed to file a lawsuit is, despite all the evidence and despite the fact that they were telling these doctors that these drugs were not very addictive, they still today are not doing, they're doing precious little to help us clean up this mess. And so they won't do the right thing by themselves. We're going to compel them to do the right things by filing this lawsuit in court.
All right, to be continued. All right, let's move on to other issues. Top of the media's list seems to be gun control. Recent Baldwin-Wallace poll found a majority of Ohioans, including members of both parties, albeit a narrow majority, want to ban military semi-automatic weapons now. As a senator, you voted at one time to extend such a ban. Just to clarify, what's your position now?
Let me tell you what we have proposed. And what John Houston and I have proposed is some things that we can actually get done. I'm a pragmatic guy. I think we need to always focus on what is doable. One, when I'm governor of the state, we are going to have in every school in the state of Ohio someone who has a mental health background and who can, when a teacher sees a student with a potential problem, whether it's in the first grade or fifth grade or 10th grade, they can take them into that person, and that person can then tie them in with their family, tie them in to people in the community mental health. So someone with a mental health background in every school, I think, will not only help identify kids who might have a potential problem and ultimately might become a shooter, but much bigger than that, will be able to help the situation that we have with kids. Number two, we have to, when someone goes in to buy a gun, there is a criminal background check that is done. We have been able to improve Ohio's accuracy, but we're not to where we should be. There's about 1,300 entry points, with be clerk of courts, for example, would be sheriffs, other places that this data has to flow into. And we have improved the accuracy since I become Attorney General. We have no authority to tell these 1,300 entities what to do, but we've worked with them to improve it. My commitment is that about 10% of the data that is flowing in today it comes in by paper. It does not come in electronically. We need to be 100% electronically. We will move as a state to make sure that is happening throughout the state of Ohio.
So accurate records.
So that is something that I think also that there should be in every school a school resource officer, someone who is a sworn police officer. That not only is a deterrent, number one. Number two, it provides, if there is a tragedy that starts to unfold, as we saw about 3 weeks ago in the one school shooting where the resource officer stopped the assailant, that person is available to do that. And I think the third benefit, frankly, is I think it's good for kids to be around a police officer in a good situation where they have the opportunity to interact with that officer every single day. I think that's a good thing.
You want to do a lot of things in a comprehensive approach. But to those people who perhaps tend to oversimplify and say, well, yeah, but is he for or against a ban on those weapons now?
Tom,
for or against?
We have the Second Amendment. We're not going to violate the Second Amendment. There's not going to be anything that's going to pass in the legislature that violates the Second Amendment, nor should there be. So we're going to follow the Second Amendment. There are things that we can do. One of the things that the president has said, he's turned to the ATF and told them to look at the regs in regard to bump stock. Which really takes a semi-automatic and functionally makes it operate as an automatic. That's something that should be looked at. There can be regulations to deal with that, and I certainly am in favor of that. The NRA is in favor of it. I'm in favor of it.
The courts have interpreted, that there can be some common sense regulations, and that the Second Amendment is not absolute. Dead bang can't be changed or modified or.
We're not going to do anything that violates the Second Amendment, Tom, and that would simply not pass.
So to the people who say, what, practically speaking,
yeah,
what is the need for an ordinary citizen to have a semi-military automatic weapon that is designed to kill lots of people quickly? What is the practical justification for that?
Look, I understand the argument. The Second Amendment is still on the books. I think the Second Amendment means exactly what it says, that people have the right to have the gun. We're going to do things, Tom, let me just conclude. We're going to do things that matter. We're going to do things that save lives. We're going to do things that can actually get done. Okay.
Do you own any guns? Are you a concealed permit holder?
I had a concealed permit. I did not renew it, but I do have it.
Okay. Are Ohio and its residents better off than they were 15 months ago, before President Trump took office? Can you cite some examples why you answer the way you do?
Sure. I think there's a couple things that the president has done, or categories of things that he does not get very much credit for, and I want to mention those. I'm in court every day, or my lawyers are in court virtually every day in federal court. We know how important it is to have judges who, in the district courts, as well as the circuit court, who aren't driven by a desire to make the law, but simply interpret the law. The president promised during the campaign he would have conservative judges, strict constructionists, and he has done that, not only in the Supreme Court, but he's done that in the Sixth Circuit, and the other circuits were of course in the Sixth Circuit, but he's done that with the district court. So I think he gets a high mark for that. Second, I think he gets a very high mark for what he's done in regard to regulations. One of the things I did as Attorney General, along with other conservative Attorney Generals around the country, is filed lawsuits against the Obama administration when we felt that they far exceeded their authority. In some of those cases, many of those cases, we were successful, although the case was still pending. When Donald Trump became president, he pulled back many of those regulations. So I applaud him for that. The tax bill. I think the tax bill, it's quite interesting. People before the tax bill passed, the public opinion polls showed that people were not in favor of this tax bill. I think the more they see it, the more they like it, and I think it's going to be something that will help the economy and help grow jobs, and I'm very much in favor of that. I'll mention a fourth thing. The administration has said they're willing to issue waivers in regard to things like Medicaid. And John Huston and I, when we take office, one of the first things we're going to do is ask the federal government to, the administration, the Trump administration, to give us some waivers so we can better design a Medicaid program that takes care of people, that puts a focus on prevention, takes care of people who have a drug addiction problem, but also requires people who can work to work.
Can you fill in the blanks a little bit more on your replacement Medicaid program here? I mean, how many people do you think may be at risk for losing coverage? Where's the money going to come from?
Well,
can you
let me start and tell the people who are watching this or listening to this kind of what the facts are, and I'll add an additional fact. Medicaid expansion, when it took place, added about roughly 700,000 people. Now, those are not all the same 700,000. It's a constantly changing group of people. The federal government at that point was paying 100% of that. So that's one thing. Today, the state of Ohio, instead of paying zero for that, is now paying approximately 6% of that. If you look at the first budget that John Huston and I will face in January, when we're putting that budget together to begin in July, we will have a hole in there of $1 billion because of Medicaid expansion. So for people who say, are you either for Medicaid expansion or against it, we're well beyond that. The question is really, for those people who say don't touch it, don't do anything, my question is, where are you going to take that money? Are you going to take that out of education? Are you going to take that out of mental health? Are you going to take this out of people with disabilities? I mean, where are you going to take it out of? So what we believe.
So you're saying all those programs would be untouchable?
I'm not saying anything is untouchable, Tom. What I'm simply saying is that there's trade-offs, and it's a $1 billion shortfall. And it's one thing when the federal government pays the whole tab. When we start paying more and more of the tab, and if anybody thinks that we're only going to ultimately pay 10%, that the federal government's going to allow that to go on forever, they're wrong. Medicaid as we know it today is unsustainable both at the state level and at the federal level. We believe we have ideas that we can put together that will be more proactive, that will get in front of problems so that people who have a medical problem will be able to get help early, and we'll put more focus on prevention. We also think it's important to have a work requirement in there as well, and work can be satisfied by someone going to school and getting their education and getting a credential so that they can actually get a job. I mean, our goal is to take people who are in poverty, who have been dependent, and to try to give them the tools that they need so they can be independent, live a good American middle-class life, and raise their kids.
But recognizing that may not be a doable or practical option for a lot of people.
Well, I think you have to take every one person at a time. And I think you just have to keep what the goal is, and that is to help that person through education or training to move forward.
Both you and your opponent, Mary Taylor, seem like they're trying to grab President Trump's coattails to an extent here. He was at an event in Richfield a little while back, and she was there and got a little shout out, and I think was quite pleased by that. And a lot of people took note of your absence, and people said, well, what could possibly trump a visit to a President Trump rally? What could Trump? I mean, where were you and why weren't you there?
I was in Southwest Ohio. I was working. I had a day schedule, and I did not, change that.
But if you wanted to be there, you could have been there. I'm sure you could.
Yes, I could have been. Yeah. I could have been there. Look, here's something to keep in mind. Bob Paduchek, who is the vice chair of the National Party, who was Donald Trump's chair in Ohio, wrote a letter where he basically said that, I was very supportive of Donald Trump during the campaign, that we talked with the Trump administration a lot about the drug problem and about criminal justice problems. And he also, frankly, called out Mary Taylor for her ads. So that's from the person who was the chairman for Donald Trump, and who Donald Trump has put in as the vice chair of the National Party.
So would you expect to see, should you win in May, would you expect to see President Trump here campaigning on your behalf?
Well, sure.
And you would welcome that?
I welcome that. But I would say even more important than that is it's very important that the governor of the state of Ohio have a good working relationship with the White House and the President of the United States. Right. And I intend to do that. And Jeff Sessions, Attorney General, had me out there several weeks ago for a press conference. I had asked the federal government to become more involved in this opiate lawsuit, and there was a very, very positive outcome. And so, again, we have that relationship, and I think it matters for the people of Ohio that I do have that relationship.
Okay. Mary Taylor, we have heard her claim over and over and over and over again, and lodging a complaint that you won't do a traditional debate. And many people would say, well, come on, that's just part of the electoral process there. We expect everybody who aspires to higher office to do one traditional face-to-face, side-by-side, let's compare them debate. Why won't you do one of those?
Well, anybody who wants to see what we did last week with the Cleveland Plain Dealer, I think it's still up online.
Yeah, but that's not a real public debate. That was inside a newspaper, and those people, but I mean, that wasn't billed as a debate.
Tom, you and I have known each other for a long time, and we're just going to agree to disagree on this. But let me, if I could, for our listeners, explain. I've been asked to do a real debate, and that's usually defined as having journalists who are asking questions. We had journalists there who were in fact asking questions, and anybody who wants to see that head-to-head, Mike DeWine, Mary Taylor, 70-some minutes. It is there, and you can go look at it. We also have been on the stage together, I think 12 or 13 other times. So what we want to do, and what John Houston and I have been doing, is talking about the future of the state. We want to articulate our vision for the future of Ohio, and we're doing that, and you're going to see us continue to do that through the election.
Some Ohio lawmakers now talking about a possible complete ban on abortion. A measure has been introduced that would allow no exceptions for mothers' health or for rape victims. If you were governor, that bill came to your desk, would you sign it as is?
Well, I think anybody who looks at this from the moral point of view or legal point of view would believe that there always should be an exception for the life of the mother. I am pro-life. The difference between Mary Taylor and Mike DeWine is that she's pro-life, but she has not been a leader. I am a leader. I have been a leader. I wrote the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, which for the first time the federal government, it passed, became law, signed into law by the president, the first time that the federal Congress, the government of the United States, has ever said that when a pregnant woman is attacked, there are two separate victims. The partial birth abortion ban, I worked very, very closely with Rick Santorum. We carried that on the Senate floor. We were able to get it passed. It was, in fact, signed into law. The DeWine Amendment, which we offered to keep federal dollars from being used in regard to insurance for federal employees, that was something that I did as well. So I've been a leader. I believe life begins at conception, and I believe that we have an obligation to protect human life.
All right. So is that a yes? I would sign it if it came to my desk as is?
Look, we need to reduce the number of abortions. I'm going to do what I can do to reduce the number of abortions. I cannot conceive that there will ever be a bill come for me to sign that does not have the exception for the life of the mother. So if your question is that, I don't think there will ever be a bill there. But if there is a bill that comes, for example, the heartbeat bill, Governor Kasich vetoed the bill.
Right.
I would have signed the bill.
All right, another matter being discussed, right-to-work law in Ohio. Does Ohio need a right-to-work law to compete with some of its neighboring states who have such laws, or would the brutal political battle and other consequences not make it worth the fight, even if you thought it was beneficial?
Yeah. John Huston and I want to do everything we can to make Ohio competitive. But we all remember the lesson from Senate Bill 5. And the truth is that the way Ohio laws are written, there couldn't be a bill like this passed that didn't then go right onto the ballot, which is what happened with Senate Bill 5. This battle would divert us from what I think we should be doing, and that is to focus on the kids that we have in this state who aren't getting the education they should receive, people who are not getting treatment for drugs, the lack of the failure of us as a state to have more prevention in regard to the drug problem. So that's going to be what we focus on. We're very, very clear, Tom, what we're going to focus on the day that we take office. So, no, I think that would be, frankly, a distraction, and that would not allow us to do the things that we really need to be doing.
Okay, so while you may be sympathetic to some of the ideas, realistically speaking, it would take too much time and attention away from other more important stuff.
We got other things that we simply have to do to make this state more competitive.
Okay, a couple quick questions here. U.S. News and World Report, which ranks colleges and ranks hospitals, also ranks states. Most recent report ranked Ohio as 40th out of 50 states, using factors of education and job creation and potential and financial stability and a whole roster of them. Are you surprised that Ohio ranks so low?
You know, you get all kinds of rankings. I know there's a lot of rankings that the Kasich administration has mentioned that have Ohio much higher. But that rankings is not what's important. What's important is that we focus beginning in January like a laser on job creation in Ohio. When I go around the state and talk to businessmen and women, the number one concern I hear, no matter where I am in the state of Ohio, Tom, is we can't find people to work. We can't find people who can pass a drug test. We can't find people who have the requisite skills. So we're going to focus on that like a laser. I've already talked about my 12-point plan in regard to education. Part of what we have to do and what a governor can do is change the culture. The culture has been for the last couple of decades, what we've been seemingly telling all our kids is that there's only one path to success, and that is to go to a four-year college. Well, that's a path to success for a lot of kids. But there are other kids who can have, for them, a better path to success, which mirrors some of the unique talents that they have to work in the trades or to do other things. And so our message to every kid in this state should be, we want you to live up to your God-given potential. We want to do everything in our power to show you all the options that you have out there, and then we're going to try to help you achieve that dream and achieve that goal.
Okay, close to wrapping up here. Payday lending. 10 years ago, Ohio voters approved a measure to cap a lid on interest rates that payday lenders could charge. Somehow they've managed to morph and change and still be basically doing the same thing under a different category, charging exorbitant interest rates. There is presently a bill, I think House Bill 123, that would cap a 28% interest rate. Does payday lending need to be capped? Would you support the measure that's currently in the legislature?
I urge the General Assembly to take action immediately. I wrote the General Assembly leaders a number of weeks ago and asked them to do that. I think that the situation we have in Ohio is not tenable. Look, there needs to be some avenue for people to get emergency money. We don't want to dry that up. But the situation that we have in Ohio, where we passed, the General Assembly a number of years ago passed something that they thought dealt with the problem, they followed what the proponents of dealing with the problem said. It didn't work. The industry found a huge loophole that they're driving through. So yeah, the General Assembly needs to address this.
Needs
and
to be fixed.
Need to do it now.
Okay, nearing the end. What one thing has your opponent said about you that you think is most misleading or untruthful?
Well, she's called me a liberal. I've been called a lot of things.
Heaven forbid.
I don't think I can be really called a liberal. You know, I'm someone who looks at problems and tries to fix problems. I mean, it's particularly irritating, I think, when she's talked about sanctuary cities, because I've done something in regard to sanctuary cities. She has not. What I've done in regard to sanctuary cities is joined other attorney generals and filed suit to back up the Trump administration and say what the Trump administration is being threatening in regard to sanctuary cities is absolutely correct. They have every right to do that. The other areas in judges, you know, she runs this crazy ad where she's talking about Mike DeWine, or, you know, when she gives a stump speech, Mike DeWine is for all liberal judges. It was Mike DeWine and 13 other United States senators working together who broke a huge logjam where the Democrats were bottling up conservative judges who had been nominated by a Republican president of the United States. As a direct result of that, most of them got through. Some have been sitting there for over a year.
Do not confuse me with, do not call me, do not label me a liberal.
Well, it's inaccurate. I mean, look, it's inaccurate.
All right, and so as we speak here, one word or one phrase answer. As we speak today, Ohio's single biggest problem is, fill in the blank.
Ohio's biggest problem today is the opioid problem and the skills gap, education gap that we face. We have to fix both of them.
All right.
We will focus on them like a laser beginning on January 14th.
All right, Mike DeWine, thanks very much
Tom,
for your
good to be
time,
with
for
you.
sharing all of your views, and good luck on May 8th.
Thanks
Thanks
Tom.
for coming by.
Good to see you. Thanks for doing these.
Sure. We will take a quick break. Be back around 4 o'clock with Democrat, former Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau boss, Richard Cordray.
Hi, I'm President Matt Wilson of the University of Akron, and you're watching ZTV.
Hi, I'm Billy Pace here with Real Fake Organs, the organ specialist. These organs are made to be perfect and also a part of you. The organs are new, clean, and everything that you